Have you ever noticed something strange? The people who accomplish the most rarely talk about motivation. They don't post inspirational quotes. They don't wait for Monday to start. They don't need a perfect morning routine or the right playlist. They simply do what needs to be done, day after day, without drama, without excuses, without negotiation. While most people are still lying in bed, scrolling through their phones, waiting to feel ready, these individuals have already completed their most important work. While others are watching motivational videos, trying to pump themselves up, these people have already trained, studied, created, and executed. And here's the fascinating part. When you ask them how they do it, they never mention feelings. They never talk about inspiration. They speak of something far older and infinitely more powerful. In 10th century Japan, during the Heian period, there existed a concept that separated ordinary men from legends. This wasn't about physical strength, though many who embodied it were formidable warriors. It wasn't about intelligence, though the wisest scholars recognized its value. This concept spoke to something the Japanese called Yamato Damashii, the spirit that moves the body even when every fiber of your being screams to stop. This principle built warriors who couldn't be defeated. It created generals who changed the course of history. But centuries later, during World War II, it was brutally hijacked and twisted into something dark. Militaristic propaganda and extreme nationalism. The Japanese government corrupted its meaning, using it to justify terrible things. But the original essence of Yamato Damashii had nothing to do with war, empire, or national superiority. It was about one devastatingly simple truth: duty over sentiment, identity over emotion, being over doing. Today, I'm going to share with you what this ancient concept really means and how it can transform you from someone who knows a lot but accomplishes little into someone who can't help but take action. But first, let me tell you the story of a man who had all the knowledge in the world and absolutely no courage to use it. Before we dive in, I need to clarify something crucial. There are two types of motivation. The first is what we might call excitement, that temporary surge you feel after watching an inspiring video or reading a powerful quote. It feels good, but it evaporates like morning dew. The second type is what the Japanese call ikigai, your reason for being, your purpose for action. In this video, we're going to explore why the first type of motivation, excitement, is actually sabotaging your progress, and why you need something much deeper. Now, before we continue, I want to invite you to subscribe to Presence and Purpose. We're building a community of people who are tired of empty motivation and ready for real transformation. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and drop a comment below. Tell me, what's the one action you keep putting off? What's the goal you've been planning forever but never executing? Share it honestly. And while you're there, help others who comment. Maybe someone needs advice in an area where you're experienced. Let's create a space where we actually help each other grow, not just consume content. Thank you for being here. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1. The Man Who Knew Everything and Did Nothing. The year is 950, Heian period, Japan. Tadayoshi is 24 years old, and he's already read more books than men twice his age. Born into a noble family, he has access to resources most people can only dream of. Chinese military classics, Buddhist texts, the strategic writings of Sun Tzu, the philosophical teachings of Confucius, while other young nobles waste their time at parties, writing poetry about cherry blossoms and getting drunk on sake. Tadayoshi studies. He studies military strategy, battle formations, combat tactics, the psychology of warfare. He has a dream, you see, to become a great warrior, perhaps even a general who will change the fate of Japan. His mind is sharp, his memory is exceptional. He can quote ancient texts verbatim and debate military theory with scholars decades older. But Tadayoshi has a devastating problem, one that's slowly crushing his soul. He cannot act. Every single morning, he wakes up with grand plans. Today will be the day. Today, he'll finally pick up his sword and train until his hands bleed. Today, he'll push his body to its limits. Today, he'll stop being a scholar pretending to be a warrior and actually become one. But then, something always happens. He'll spot a new scroll on his shelf, a text about a technique he hasn't completely mastered. And his mind whispers, "How can I train without fully understanding the theory first? What if I practice incorrectly? Shouldn't I study this one more thing?" So he reads, he studies, he takes notes, he memorizes, and when he finally feels ready to take action, the sun has set. The day is gone. Tomorrow, he promises himself. Tomorrow, I'll definitely start. The household servants begin whispering. The other nobles start laughing behind his back. Tadayoshi, the warrior of books, they mock. He can kill you with knowledge, but never with a sword. The truth cuts deeper than any blade because it's absolutely true. He has enough technical knowledge to train an entire army. But he himself has never felt the burn of exhausted muscles, never experienced the mental wall that separates the mediocre from the excellent, never faced the real discomfort that transforms theory into skill. His father, a stern man who served as a military advisor to a provincial lord, looks at him one evening and says something that will haunt Tadayoshi forever. "You have the mind of a general and the heart of a scribe. All that knowledge without action is worthless. You're not a man, you're a ghost pretending to be alive." Tadayoshi doesn't sleep that night. His father's words echo like thunder in his mind. He knows it's true. All those years of studying, all those books, all that knowledge, and he remains exactly the same. Weak, hesitant, trapped inside his own head, paralyzed by overthinking. But the next morning, something different happens. For the first time in years, Tadayoshi doesn't open a book. He walks out the door. Chapter 2. The Meeting in the Forest. Tadayoshi wanders aimlessly through the forest, near his family's estate. The morning air is cold, biting. The sun has barely risen. He doesn't know what he's looking for. Maybe clarity. Maybe permission to go back to his comfortable life of books. Maybe just a walk to clear his head. That's when he hears it, a rhythmic, repetitive sound. Metal cutting through air. Wood striking wood. Consistent, relentless, hypnotic. He follows the sound to a small clearing and freezes. There stands a man, perhaps 50 years old, with graying hair tied back in a simple bun. His body is marked with old scars, white lines across his arms, a jagged mark on his shoulder. He's moving with a wooden sword, performing the same sequence over and over and over, the same cut, the same stance, the same breath, hundreds of times. Tadayoshi watches, mesmerized. There's no emotion on the man's face, no expression of effort or satisfaction, just pure, constant, relentless movement. This is what discipline looks like, Tadayoshi realizes. Not exciting, not motivated, just present, just doing. When the man finally stops, Tadayoshi approaches nervously. "Master," he begins, using the term of respect automatically. "I've watched you train. You have a discipline I've never seen. Please, teach me." The man looks him over slowly, takes in the fine silk clothes, the soft, uncalloused hands, the posture of someone who's never done real physical labor. "No," he says simply, and begins to turn away. "Wait." Tadayoshi's voice cracks with desperation. "I've studied all the techniques. I know Sun Tzu's Art of War by heart. I know formations, strategies, the writings of the great Chinese generals. I can learn quickly. I promise." The man stops, turns slowly. His eyes are hard as stone. "You know techniques?" There's something almost amused in his voice. "Good, go use them yourself." And he continues walking. Something breaks inside Tadayoshi. All his pride, his identity as the educated noble, shatters. "Please," he shouts, "I need to change. I need to become more than I am." The man stops again. This time he's silent for a long moment. Finally, without turning around, he says, "You're going to give up." "I won't," Tadayoshi replies immediately. "Everyone gives up. I won't." The man turns and studies Tadayoshi's face carefully. He sees desperation there. But despair is just another feeling, and feelings pass like clouds. Still, perhaps this young noble needs to discover this truth for himself. "Tomorrow," the man finally says, "before sunrise. Here, if you show up, I'll consider teaching you. If you don't ever come back." Tadayoshi nods fervently. "I'll be here. I promise." The man almost laughs. "Promises," he mutters, as if promises meant anything. Chapter 3. The first test. Tadayoshi doesn't sleep that night. Every time he closes his eyes, he sees the man's stern face. Hears his voice. "You're going to give up." He can't give up. Not this time. He refuses to be the warrior of books anymore. He arrives at the clearing a full hour before dawn. It's freezing cold, dark. He waits, shivering, watching for the first rays of sunlight to touch the trees. The man appears like a ghost. One moment the clearing is empty. The next he's simply there, standing silently. He looks at Tadayoshi with what might be surprise or disappointment. It's impossible to tell. "You came," the man observes. "It's not a compliment." "I said I would come." "Words," the man murmurs. "Today, I'll find out if you have anything more than words." What follows is absolute hell. The man, who finally reveals his name as Kaito, starts with something deceptively simple. A basic fighting stance, crouching, knees bent, back straight, arms extended, holding a wooden sword parallel to the ground. This position, Kaito explains, is the foundation of everything. "How long?" Tadayoshi asks. "Until I tell you to stop." 2 minutes later, Tadayoshi's legs are shaking. 5 minutes later, he's drenched in cold sweat. 10 minutes later, every single fiber of his body is screaming at him to move, to straighten, to stop this madness. "Master, I don't think I can." Silence. Kaito's voice cuts through the air like a blade. He's sitting on a rock, staring at Tadayoshi with the same impassive expression. "Your mind is telling you to stop. It lies. Your body is capable of far more than your mind believes." 15 minutes. Tadayoshi feels tears in his eyes, not from sadness, but from pure physical agony. Every muscle is on fire. I can't." "Stop," Kaito says suddenly. Tadayoshi collapses forward, gasping for air as if he's just run a marathon. His legs won't stop trembling. He looks up at Kaito, hoping for what? Understanding? Encouragement? What he sees is disappointment. 15 minutes? Kaito says. "And you already want to give up. Do you think battles last 15 minutes? Do you think enemies wait for you to feel comfortable?" Tadayoshi lowers his head. "The shame is overwhelming. Go home," Kaito says, standing up. "You don't have what it takes." Something shatters inside Tadayoshi. But from that breaking, something else emerges. Something harder. "No," he says, forcing himself to stand on shaking legs. "I'll do it again." Kaito looks at him with new interest. "You think motivation will save you? This anger you feel right now, it will pass. Tomorrow morning, you'll wake up sore, exhausted, and you won't want to come back." "I'll come back." "Why?" It's not a rhetorical question. It's a test. Tadayoshi opens his mouth to answer, then closes it. Why would he come back? Because he wants to be a warrior? That's a feeling. Because he's ashamed? That's also a feeling. And Kaito is right, feelings pass. "You don't know," Kaito observes, "and because you don't know, you won't last." He begins walking away. "Wait," Tadayoshi shouts. "Tell me then. Tell me why I should come back." Kaito stops, turns slowly. "Because it's your duty." "Duty?" Tadayoshi repeats, confused. "Duty to whom?" "To yourself. To the man you promised to become." Listen carefully. Motivation is a feeling. Duty is an order. Feelings change with the wind. Duty remains even in the storm. Kaito takes another step, then stops once more. We Japanese have a word for this, Yamato Damashii, the Japanese spirit. It's not about feeling like doing something. It's about doing it because it's who you are. Chapter 4. The second day and the first real lesson. Tadayoshi returns the next day. Not because he wants to, his entire body aches. His legs can barely support his weight. Every muscle protests with each step. But he remembers Kaito's words. Duty remains even in the storm. Kaito is waiting. This time, his face shows something different. Not approval exactly, but recognition. "You're back," he says. "I said I'd be back. Yesterday you said it with emotion. Today you say it with weariness." Which is truer? Tatayoshi thinks. Today, exactly. Yesterday you were motivated. Today you're fulfilling your duty. One disappears, the other doesn't. Kaito makes him assume the same stance as yesterday. But this time, before they begin, he explains. Yamato Damashii isn't something you feel, it's something you do until you become it. Let me teach you about what you studied in those books. As Tatayoshi holds the position, his legs already beginning to tremble, Kaito asks, "What did you study?" "Battle strategies," Tatayoshi replies through gritted teeth. "Tactics, formations, the classics. And that made you a warrior?" "No. Why not?" Tatayoshi doesn't respond immediately, focused on the burning pain. "Because I didn't act." "Partially correct," Kaito says. "The knowledge you gain from Chinese texts is valuable. The classics teach strategy, they teach wisdom. But there's an old saying, knowledge is of little use without Yamato Damashii. Do you know what that means?" Tatayoshi's legs start trembling violently. "It means you can know how to win every battle in the world, but if you don't have the soul to show up on the battlefield, that knowledge is worthless. Yamato Damashii is the spirit that turns knowledge into action. It's what keeps you moving when every part of you wants to stop." Tatayoshi's legs give way. He falls. 20 minutes this time, 5 minutes longer than yesterday. Kaito nods. "Progress. Not because you've gotten stronger, your body is actually weaker than yesterday. You've progressed because you've learned that pain isn't the enemy. Hesitation is the enemy." Chapter 5. The Lesson of the River, third day. Tatayoshi arrives at dawn. Kaito is waiting, but this time they don't stay in the clearing. "Today," Kaito says, "you'll understand the difference between doing something when you want to versus doing it because you must. Follow me." They walk to a nearby river. The water is fast and brutally cold. You can see it in how it moves, aggressive and unforgiving. Kaito points to a rock in the middle of the river. "You will stand on that rock in your fighting stance until I tell you to leave." Tatayoshi looks at the icy water. "For how long?" "Until you understand." Tatayoshi steps into the river. The water is so cold it feels like knives cutting into his skin. He jumps onto the rock, slips, almost falls, but manages to catch his balance. He assumes the stance. The water splashes against his legs. The cold is unbearable. 5 minutes and he's shaking uncontrollably. 10 minutes and he can't feel his feet. 15 minutes and panic starts creeping in. Every cell in his body is screaming at him to get out. "Master," he shouts, "I can't take this. Your ancestors endured worse." Kaito shouts back from the shore. "They stood on battlefields for days. They marched with open wounds. They fought until their last breath. And you can't handle cold water?" "But why?" Tatayoshi shouts. "Why do I have to do this?" "Because it is your duty." Kaito's voice echoes through the forest. "You asked me to teach you. You promised to become a warrior. That's not a request, it's a declaration, and declarations demand duty." Tatayoshi closes his eyes. Tears stream down his face, mixing with the river spray. He thinks about giving up. It would be so easy. Just step off the rock, go home, return to his comfortable life of books. But then he remembers his father's words. "You have the mind of a general and the heart of a scribe." The laughter of the other nobles. The warrior of books. All those years of studying, planning, knowing, and nothing changing. He's not that man anymore. Not here, not now. The cold remains. The pain remains. But something shifts inside him. He stops fighting it. He accepts it. "I'm here because I choose to be. I stay because I must." Time becomes meaningless. Eventually, Kaito shouts, "Get out!" Tatayoshi jumps off the rock. His legs barely respond. Kaito helps him to shore, leads him to a fire that's already burning. 45 minutes, Kaito says. "You stayed 45 minutes. Tatayoshi stares at him in disbelief. It felt like hours. "Do you know what happened out there?" Kaito asks. "For the first 15 minutes, you fought the discomfort. It exhausted you. Then something changed. You stopped fighting. You accepted that the cold was your duty. And, paradoxically, it became easier. Not because the pain lessened, but because you stopped adding mental suffering to physical pain." Kaito adds fuel to the fire. This is Yamato Damashii. It's not about not feeling. It's about not letting. Feelings dictate your actions. Did you feel cold? Yes. Did you want to leave? Yes. But you stayed because duty doesn't negotiate with discomfort. Chapter 6. The Origin Story. That evening, Kaito allows Tadayoshi to rest early, but first they sit by the river, listening to the water rush past. "Do you know why I'm teaching you about Yamato Damashii?" Kaito asks. Tadayoshi shakes his head. "Because you're exactly the type of man this concept was created to save." Kaito looks up at the stars. Centuries ago, our elite became obsessed with Chinese culture. And rightfully so, the Chinese had incredible knowledge. Philosophy, strategy, art, poetry. Our nobles studied these classics intensely. They became brilliant scholars. But many of them became like you were. They knew everything and did nothing. Knowledge without soul, theory without practice. That's when our ancestors realized something crucial. They needed a way to describe what separated men who just knew things from men who actually did things. It wasn't enough to have Karazukai Chinese knowledge. You needed Yamato Damashii, the native spirit, the soul that makes you act even when you don't want to. Kaito continues. This wasn't about being anti-Chinese or anti-foreign. It was about recognizing that knowledge is the tool, but spirit is the craftsman. You can have the best sword in the world, but if you lack the courage to wield it, it's just decorative metal. The truth our ancestors discovered is this: practical wisdom, the ability to solve real problems, make decisions under pressure, act when action is necessary, doesn't come from books alone. It comes from doing, from showing up, from fulfilling your duty when every part of you wants to run away. Yamato Damashii was the difference between the scholar who debates war and the warrior who fights in war. Between the poet who writes about courage and the man who acts with courage. Between who you were 3 days ago and who you're becoming now. Chapter 7. The Great Temptation. Week 2. Tadayoshi has made real progress. He can hold stances for longer periods. His muscles are beginning to respond properly. His mind is starting to quiet. Then comes the real test. It's the full moon festival. All the nobility will be there: music, poetry, sake, celebration. Tadayoshi receives an invitation. The night before the festival, he can barely sleep. Not from excitement about training, from internal conflict. He's trained 7 days straight. One night off wouldn't hurt, right? He deserves some rest, some fun, some normalcy. On the morning of the 8th day, Tadayoshi doesn't appear in the clearing. Kaito waits, watches the sun rise completely. Tadayoshi doesn't come. Tadayoshi is at home, sleeping off a night of drinking and socializing. When he finally wakes, it's late afternoon. The guilt hits him immediately, crushing. He's broken down after only a week, after all his promises. The next day, he goes to the clearing expecting it to be empty. Kaito will have given up on him, surely. But Kaito is there, waiting. His face doesn't show anger. It shows something worse: sadness. "You missed yesterday," Kaito says quietly. "It was the festival." Silence, not angry, weary. "You don't owe me an explanation. You owe yourself one. And you failed." Tears well up in Tadayoshi's eyes. "I'm sorry. Please let me continue." "It was a mistake. It was a choice," Kaito corrects. "You chose comfort over duty, pleasure over promise. And you know what that proves. You still don't understand Yamato Damashii. You still think it's about doing things when it's convenient." Kaito starts to walk away. "Wait," Tadayoshi begs. "Give me one more chance. I understand now. I really understand." "Do you?" Kaito turns. "Then explain to me. What is Yamato Damashii?" Tadayoshi takes a deep breath. It's doing things even when you don't want to." "Partially correct. Continue." "It's duty over feeling. That's a consequence, not the essence. Deeper." Tadayoshi closes his eyes, thinks of everything: the cold river, the burning stances. Then it clicks. It's who you are, not what you do. It's identity. "When I broke my commitment yesterday, I wasn't breaking a habit. I was betraying who I declared myself to be." Kaito is silent for a long moment. Then he nods slowly. "Now you're beginning to understand." What Kaito does next completely breaks Tadayoshi. He makes him hold the stance for 2 hours straight. No mercy, no breaks. As Tadayoshi finally collapses, trembling and crying, Kaito says, "This pain, you chose it yesterday. When you break your duty, you don't escape consequences. You only postpone them, and they come back worse." Chapter 8. Identity, not action. The next day, Kaito teaches differently. Instead of physical training, he makes Tadayoshi sit. "Do you think discipline is about doing difficult things?" Kaito asks. "Yes? No. Discipline is about being someone for whom these things are non-negotiable. There's a huge difference between I should train and I am someone who trains. One is desire. The other is identity." Kaito draws in the dirt. "Look, when you say I want to be a warrior, you create distance between who you are now and who you want to be. This distance allows negotiation. I want to, but not today. I want to, but I'm tired. I want to, but it's the festival. But when you say I am a warrior, there's no distance, no negotiation. Warriors train not because they want to, but because it's what warriors do. It's identity, not choice." Something clicks in Tadayoshi's mind. So, Yamato Damashii isn't about forcing action? Exactly. For the first time in weeks, Kaito smiles. Yamato Damashii is about embodying an identity so completely that action flows naturally. You stop asking, "Should I?" and start simply doing because it's impossible not to. It's who you are. Think of the great warriors of the past, Kaito continues. They didn't wake up every day deciding whether to train. That question didn't exist. They were warriors. Warriors train. Simple. The problem with your book knowledge wasn't that you had knowledge. It was that you identified as a scholar who wanted to be a warrior, not as a warrior who studies. See the difference? Tadayoshi sees it clearly for the first time. In the coming months, Kaito says, I will teach you how to change your identity. Not through thought, through repetition, so consistent that your body and mind have no choice but to accept you are no longer who you were. Chapter 9. The Transformation. The following months are brutal, but something fundamental changes in Tadayoshi. He stops negotiating with himself. Kaito teaches him a simple principle. Decide once, act 1,000 times. Tadayoshi decides who he is, not who he wants to be, who he is. Then he lives as that person. No questions, no negotiations. 90 days, every single day before sunrise. No exceptions. No, just not today. No, I'm too tired. The question, am I going to train today, simply stops existing. Of course he will. Warriors train. He is a warrior. Week 6. Something strange happens. Tadayoshi starts waking before his alarm. His body automatically begins preparing. By week 8, he realizes he's not thinking about training anymore. He just shows up. Kaito watches with satisfaction. See? Your brain finally accepted it. You're not forcing anymore. It's flowing. The real transformation comes on day 63. Tadayoshi wakes up sick. Fever. Body aching. Mind foggy. The old voice whispers, You must rest today. He gets up anyway. Staggers to the clearing. Kaito sees his condition immediately. You're sick, Kaito observes. I am. Why did you come? Tadayoshi replies without thinking. Because that's who I am. Kaito smiles, not a small smile, but a huge one of genuine pride. Now you understand. Yamato Damashii isn't about being strong. It's about being unshakable, not in power, but in identity. Go home, Kaito says gently. Rest today. You've proven your point. You didn't come to prove yourself to me. You came because you can't help but come. You've changed. Chapter 10. The Final Lesson, Day 90. 3 months of non-stop training, Tadayoshi is no longer the same man. Physically transformed muscles where there was softness, calluses where there was soft skin, but the real change is invisible. Kaito sits him down one final time. You've completed your training period. Now I'll tell you the truth you needed to discover yourself. Yamato Damashii was never about training. It was about death and rebirth. The Tadayoshi who arrived here 3 months ago, the man who knew everything and did nothing, he died. Every single day when you woke and chose duty over comfort, you were killing him and being born anew. The books you read weren't wrong, Kaito continues. Your knowledge is valuable, but knowledge without soul is a corpse. Beautiful perhaps, but dead. Yamato Damashii is the soul that animates knowledge. It transforms information into wisdom, theory into practice, intention into reality. Kaito stands. There's one last thing to show you. He leads Tadayoshi to an open field. 20 armed men wait there, soldiers. Real warriors. These men need an instructor, Kaito explains. Someone who understands strategy but has also proven they can execute. Someone with Yamato Damashii. Tadayoshi looks at the men, then at Kaito. You're recommending me? No, I'm handing you your duty. You spent 3 months learning to be a warrior. Now you'll teach others not through books, though your books are useful. Through example, through identity. Through Yamato Damashii, Chapter 11. 5 years later. 5 years pass. Tadayoshi, now 29, has become exactly what he dreamed of. Not just a warrior, a general. A leader men follow not from fear but from respect. He commands 300 soldiers. He's won 3 important battles, but more importantly, he's taught what Kaito taught him. Yamato Damashii. His soldiers aren't the strongest. They don't have the best equipment, but they have something enemy armies don't negotiate. When orders come, they execute without hesitation, without internal questioning. Not because they're blind, but because they have identity. We are Tadayoshi's soldiers, they say. And Tadayoshi's soldiers don't break. One day, a young recruit comes to him, intelligent, studious, but weak. Tadayoshi sees himself. General, the young man says, I've read all the manuals, I know all the techniques, but in training, I freeze. I know what to do, but can't do it. Why? Tadayoshi smiles. He's waited years for this. Question. Because you have knowledge without soul. Knowledge tells you what to do. Yamato Damashii makes you do it. Come with me tomorrow before sunrise. I'll teach you what no book can teach. And the next day, in a clearing in the forest, the cycle begins again. Chapter 12. Distortion and Return. Tadayoshi lives to 67. He sees much change in Japan but never forgets Kaito's teachings. Never stops living by Yamato Damashii. But the story doesn't end with men like them. Centuries later, leading up to World War II, the concept is hijacked. Militaristic governments take Yamato Damashii, this beautiful concept of completing knowledge with action, and twist it into something horrific. They claim Yamato Damashii means dying for the emperor. Blind nationalism. Japanese superiority. Soldiers fighting to death not from personal duty but fanatical obedience. This wasn't Yamato Damashii. It was propaganda wearing a sacred name. The real Yamato Damashii, the one Kaito taught, had nothing to do with national superiority. It was about personal superiority, not being better than others, but better than you were yesterday. About the internal war. About killing the version of yourself that negotiates, postpones, knows but doesn't act, and being born as someone who simply executes. Not from emotion, but from identity. Today, the term carries scars from that dark period. Many Japanese avoid using it. But the essence, the truth, never died. It lives every time someone chooses duty over feeling, every time someone shows up when they don't want to, every time someone turns knowledge into action, theory into practice, intention into reality. Chapter 13. Applying Yamato Damashii. Today you don't need to be a samurai to experience Yamato Damashii. You don't need to be Japanese. Because at its core, this isn't about culture, it's about universal human truth. Here's that truth. Motivation is a lie. Motivation is a feeling. Feelings change with the wind. Monday you're motivated. Wednesday you're tired. Friday you give up. Sunday you promise to start again. This cycle kills dreams, kills potential, kills who you could become. Yamato Damashii is the answer. Here's how it works. First, stop making promises about what you'll do. Make declarations about who you are. Don't say, I'm going to the gym. Say, I'm someone who trains. Don't say, I should read more. Say, I'm someone who reads daily. The difference seems small but changes everything. Second, understand that duty is non-negotiable. When you say, I am someone who does X, You're not creating a goal, you're creating identity. Identity doesn't have days off. You don't get a day off from being you. Third, accept that transformation requires pain. Breaking comfort cycles hurts. Creating good habits and abandoning bad ones hurts. But pain is like bitter medicine, uncomfortable at first, but it heals. Fourth, knowledge without action is illusion. You can study training for years and remain weak, read about business and stay broke, learn about relationships and stay alone. Why? Because you have knowledge, but not Yamato Damashii, the spirit to execute. Knowledge shows the way. Yamato Damashii makes you walk. Fifth, consistency trumps intensity. Tadayoshi didn't become a warrior in one day of intense training. He became one in 90 days of showing up every single day, even sick, even tired, even when he didn't want to. Transformation doesn't come from one heroic effort. It comes from 1,000 small acts of fulfilled duty. Don't focus on impossible tasks. Instead of studying 16 hours one day, study 3 hours consistently every day. Don't worry about hours per day. Worry about the number of days you maintain that habit. Chapter 14. The Final Secret. But there's one final secret Kaito taught Tadayoshi only on the last day. Something that completely changes how you view discipline. After 90 full days, Kaito said something that sounded like contradiction. Now that you've learned Yamato Damashii, I'll teach you when to break it. Tadayoshi was confused. Break it? But you said duty is non-negotiable. And it doesn't negotiate, Kaito confirmed. But there's a difference between breaking from weakness and adjusting from wisdom. Yamato Damashii isn't about self-punishment. It's not about destroying your body or mind in the name of blind consistency. It's about serving your greater purpose, not rigidly following rules. If you're truly sick, not lazy, but truly sick, resting isn't breaking Yamato Damashii. It's honoring it. You're resting to serve better tomorrow, not running away because you don't want to do today. See the difference? Tadayoshi saw. It was about intention. Warriors rest strategically to fight harder, Kaito said. Cowards rest emotionally to avoid fighting. Same action, opposite intention. The test is simple. Ask yourself, why am I stopping today? If the answer is because I don't want to, or because it's hard, or because I deserve a break, you're negotiating. Kill that thought. Execute. But if the answer is because my body needs recovery to perform better tomorrow, that's not negotiating. That's strategy. Yamato Damashii without wisdom is fanaticism, Kaito continued. Yamato Damashii with wisdom is mastery. Never confuse the two. That was the final lesson, and the most important, because Yamato Damashii's goal was never creating robots that execute blindly. It was creating warriors who execute with purpose, who understand that discipline serves something greater. That duty isn't a prison, it's the freedom to decide once and live 1,000 times without the burden of constant decisions. The truth available to you. Now Tadayoshi's story ends, but the truth he discovered doesn't. That truth is available to you right now, in this moment. You don't need more motivation. Motivation is fuel that runs out. You need Yamato Damashii. You need an identity so strong that action isn't a choice, it's an inevitability. You need to understand that all the knowledge you have, all the courses, books, videos, strategies, are worthless without the spirit to execute. Knowledge is of little use without Yamato Damashii. You need to accept that the person you are now, the one who knows but doesn't act, who plans but doesn't execute, who promises but doesn't deliver, that person must cease to exist. And you're the one who defeats them, every single day, by fulfilling your duty, by taking action when you don't want to, by being consistent when it's inconvenient. In that person's place, something new is born. Someone unwavering, someone who doesn't negotiate, someone people look at and think, how does he do it? And the answer is simple. He doesn't do it. He is it. This is Yamato Damashii. It's not a Japanese technique, it's human truth. It's the difference between dreaming and living, between wanting and being, between dead knowledge and living wisdom. When you finally understand this, not intellectually but viscerally, deep in your soul, you'll realize you'll never need motivation again, because you won't be doing things, you'll be being someone. and this person simply cannot help but act. If this video changed your perspective on discipline and action, I want to invite you to subscribe to Presence and Purpose. We're building something special here, a community of people who are done with empty motivation and ready for real transformation. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss future content that will continue this journey. And listen, drop a comment below right now. Tell me honestly, what's the one action you've been putting off? What do you know you need to do but keep postponing? Share it. And while you're there, help someone else who commented. Maybe they need advice in an area where you have experience. Let's create a real community of people helping each other grow. Remember, knowledge without Yamato Damashii is just dead information taking up space in your head. Knowledge with Yamato Damashii is the power to transform your life. The choice is yours, but choose quickly. Because every day you put it off, the old you grows stronger. One day it will win unless you defeat it today. If you've watched this far, thank you for your attention. You've already proven you have something most people don't. Now use it. Take action. Be present. Walk with honor. Follow the path. See you in the next video.